My brother's wife tried to force her kids into my will. When I said no, she sued me, and uncovered a brutal truth. Plus 3 updates. I'm a 58-year-old man, and I never imagined I'd be dragged into a legal and emotional nightmare by my own family. 6 months ago, I lost my second wife, Lauren, 47, to an aggressive form of cancer. Her death left a deep void and added tension to already complex family dynamics. I have 2 grown children from my first marriage, Alex, 32, and Mia, 29. Lauren didn't have kids of her own, but she was incredibly close to her sister's children, who called her Auntie L. The storm began when my sister-in-law, Grace, 30, who married my younger brother Daniel, 35, 2 years ago, began demanding that I include her 4 children from a previous marriage in my estate. Grace is a widow, and her kids range from 6 to 12. When she and Daniel married, I welcomed her and the kids warmly, though I noticed some red flags early on, subtle comments about money, inheritance, and their place in the family. Some background: I spent 35 years building a commercial property development company from the ground up. It wasn't easy. I started with nothing, worked ridiculous hours, and took serious financial risks. My first wife and I divorced amicably when our kids were teens. She's since remarried and is doing well. When Lauren and I married, we agreed to keep our finances separate. It was all in writing, a detailed prenuptial agreement. She supported my work wholeheartedly, and we had mutual understanding regarding our assets and responsibilities. Daniel works for me as a senior operations manager in the company. He's good at what he does and earns a strong salary. Grace, on the other hand, hasn't worked since their wedding. Over time, she became increasingly involved, or rather, intrusive, in business and estate conversations. She'd ask pointed questions, make comments like family legacy should include all children, and imply that her kids had a rightful claim to the company because of Daniel's position. At first, I thought it was just maternal instinct. But things came to a head a few weeks ago when I met with my attorney to revise my will. My assets, totaling around $8.5 million, are being passed primarily to my biological children, with some educational provisions for Lauren's nieces and nephews. I also included $50,000 education trusts for each of Grace's 4 kids, managed by a third-party trustee until they reach college. Apparently, Daniel told Grace about the meeting. That same week, she stormed into my office without an appointment, demanding I change the estate plan. She wanted equal shares of my company and inheritance distributed to all the grandkids, including hers. Her reasoning? Since Daniel helped build the company and her children saw him as a father figure, they deserved ownership stakes in the business. I explained, politely, that while I care for her kids, my primary responsibility is to my own children and honoring the commitments Lauren and I made before her passing. That's when Grace dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant, and unless I restructured my will and the business to include her children, she'd convince Daniel to leave the company and move out of state with their growing family. That moment changed everything. The timing of the pregnancy announcement felt strategic. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how calculated her behavior had become. Daniel tried to find middle ground, suggesting maybe his stepkids could have small shares or roles in the business. He argued that Grace was just trying to secure their future. But I stood my ground. The educational trusts were generous, and the business would remain under the direction of my biological children and pre-agreed parties. That's when Grace took it to another level. She hired a lawyer and began threatening legal action. Her argument? That by giving Lauren's extended family provisions while excluding her children from company shares, I was acting with bias. She claimed her kids had a stake through Daniel's contributions and tried to build a discrimination case. Worse, she began spreading rumors, contacting extended family and even some business partners, accusing me of favoritism and greed. Some distant relatives sided with her, saying I should be embracing modern family values. Meanwhile, she restricted my contact with Daniel and the kids, saying they were emotionally distraught and didn't want to see me. It was heartbreaking. I had formed real bonds with those kids, and now she was using them as pawns. Daniel looked increasingly torn. He admitted she had threatened to take the kids and leave if he didn't support her legal crusade. But he also knew she was crossing a line. Then things got truly disturbing. During a scheduled business review, Grace asked to use the restroom, and instead was caught on surveillance snooping through private company files in my office. We'd installed discrete cameras after a few earlier incidents, and this time, we had her on video. Fortunately, the real documents were stored securely elsewhere. What she accessed were old, decoy copies. Still, it was clear she intended to use them as leverage. My legal team launched an internal investigation. That's when everything unraveled. Daniel found a personal journal in their home office. It had been hidden behind books and was filled with disturbing entries, notes about my assets, planned manipulation of family members, and even a timeline showing she had known about the pregnancy before the estate changes, but chose to reveal it afterward for maximum leverage. It didn't stop there. A contact from Grace's late husband's family, their former attorney, came forward. Freed from confidentiality by documented fraud, he confirmed Grace had pulled a very similar scheme with her late husband's family business, using threats, emotional blackmail, and strategic pregnancies to secure a settlement. This was enough for the district attorney to act. Grace was arrested and charged with multiple felonies, including forgery, attempted corporate fraud, and conspiracy. Her past couldn't be reopened legally due to time limits, but it supported a clear pattern of behavior. Daniel filed for divorce and requested emergency custody of the unborn child. The judge granted him temporary full custody and mandated supervised visitation for Grace once the baby was born. Though Daniel had no legal ties to her 4 older kids, the court created a temporary visitation plan to allow him to stay in their lives, if the children wanted that contact. Grace took a plea deal. She received 18 months in jail, with 90 days to serve and the rest suspended under strict probation. Conditions included mandatory psychiatric counseling, financial oversight, and restrictions from working in or accessing family-run businesses. My nephew, Caleb, was born during that time, healthy and full of life. The court's decision protected Daniel's parental rights while granting Grace limited, supervised visitation. For the 4 children from her previous marriage, Daniel couldn't gain legal guardianship, but the judge recognized the emotional bonds they'd formed and approved transitional visitation through their maternal grandparents, who had temporary custody during Grace's incarceration. Despite the chaos, I chose not to change the structure of my estate or the business succession plan. What I did do was tighten the legal language and put in place additional safeguards. The education trusts for Grace's children stayed in place but were transferred to a corporate trustee with strict stipulations. Funds would be released directly to accredited educational institutions, not individuals. As the dust began to settle, something unexpected happened. The extended family started to reconcile. People who had originally taken Grace's side came forward and apologized after seeing the evidence in court. My children grew closer to Daniel during this period. They supported him through the legal battle, through becoming a single dad, and through rebuilding his role in the company. Refusing to give in to manipulation wasn't just a financial decision, it preserved our integrity and, oddly enough, opened a door to long overdue transformation. Daniel truly came into his own during that chapter. For years, he'd worked under me, content to stay behind the curtain. But with Grace out of the picture, he emerged as a strong, visionary leader. He spearheaded our company's move into eco-conscious development, energy-efficient homes, sustainable building materials, and community-focused planning. Our company flourished, but it wasn't just about revenue. We also restructured from the inside. With guidance from governance consultants, we implemented a family business charter, created a family council to resolve future conflicts, and introduced a generational mentorship program. Mia, with her background in corporate law, helped formalize the mentorship model and created training tracks for younger family members who wanted to eventually join the business, but had to earn it. Caleb became a ray of light for all of us. His birth didn't just mark the start of Daniel's new life, it reminded the rest of us why all of this mattered. We reworked company policies to support working parents, added on-site childcare for our staff, and initiated wellness programs for employees. What had started as a toxic internal crisis led to reforms that genuinely made our company, and our family, stronger. Even Grace's children benefited from these changes. The eldest, Ella, reached out to me when she started college. She thanked me for the trust fund and told me she was studying nonprofit management. She wanted to create support systems for children from blended families and troubled homes. I offered her a summer internship at our company, along with access to our new foundation's resources. Yes, we started a foundation. The Helix Initiative, named after the idea that blended families, like DNA, are complex but powerful when structured right. The foundation focuses on helping blended families navigate business succession, offering legal aid, therapy, and educational resources. It became a passion project, and over time, a national resource. To my surprise, Grace's parents, who initially blamed us for her arrest, came around. They took an active role in helping their grandkids heal and facilitated a healthy, structured relationship between the kids and Daniel. They enforced boundaries but emphasized love, which made all the difference. Our case didn't just ripple through our personal lives, it made waves legally. It was cited in multiple family business succession lawsuits across our state and even helped influence revisions to laws involving stepchildren and blended family rights in inheritance planning. And there were more personal milestones. Daniel eventually fell in love again, this time with someone who respected boundaries and shared his vision. Her name is Nicole, a small business owner and mother of one. Their relationship was honest, grounded, and free from the power plays we'd all come to associate with Grace. Together, Daniel and Nicole raised Caleb in a home built on emotional safety. No manipulation. No hidden agendas. Just intention, accountability, and love. As for me, the older I got, the more I shifted from business owner to mentor. I handed over day-to-day control to Daniel and Mia, who now serve as co-leaders of the company. Alex, my son, used his tech background to launch a new wing of the company focused on real estate automation and property analytics, turning us into a tech-forward firm with sustainable values at its core. Ella, Grace's oldest, graduated last year and now works for a nonprofit we fund through our foundation. She told me her mom's mistakes taught her what not to do, and inspired her to help others escape toxic cycles. As for Grace, after her release and therapy, she tried to re-enter certain professional circles, claiming she had changed. We stayed cautious. While her memoir, which she self-published, acknowledged some mistakes, it also skirted around deeper accountability. We maintained firm boundaries, especially for the sake of the children. Her probation was extended after she broke conditions by covertly reaching out to other business families through networking events. Her access to the children remained limited and supervised. 10 years after everything began, our company employs over 500 people across 3 states. We've become a national case study for how to transition a family business out of chaos and into sustainable, values-driven leadership. Our family council meets quarterly, and the family business charter we wrote is now being adopted by other companies. We even created a certification program for family business advisors, focusing on the complications blended families can introduce. Perhaps the biggest win? The kids. All 4 of Grace's children have finished or are finishing their education, debt-free and stable. 2 have gone on to pursue master's degrees. 1 is studying business ethics. Another is shadowing legal professionals focused on succession law, hoping to help families like ours before things fall apart. Caleb, now almost 10, already has ideas for improving our company's energy usage. We don't push him toward the family business, but if he decides to step in one day, he'll be trained, mentored, and, most importantly, ready. Looking toward the future, we've shifted our focus to long-term impact, not just for our family, but for families like ours around the world. The Helix Initiative, our foundation, has grown from a modest support network into a nationwide organization with regional branches in 9 states. We've supported over 500 blended families, providing counseling services, legal mediation, and educational grants. We've even started a publishing arm to produce materials on healthy family business dynamics for use in schools and professional programs. Next year, we're launching our Global Governance Fellowship, an international program designed to support family-owned businesses in developing countries, helping them set up structures that honor cultural traditions and protect against internal exploitation. Our online resource hub is already live, offering free toolkits and training sessions for navigating blended family conflicts within business settings. In terms of legacy, I feel more peace now than I ever imagined. Daniel has fully embraced his role as co-CEO. He and Nicole recently got engaged, and Caleb, now in middle school, is thriving. He's smart, kind, and refreshingly grounded for a kid growing up around wealth. Nicole's influence has been profound. Her values, emotional intelligence, and business acumen have helped Daniel become the best version of himself. My daughter, Mia, heads our corporate ethics division and recently helped draft new national guidelines for succession planning involving non-biological children. Her work has been praised in academic circles, and she now lectures at several universities on the intersection of family, law, and leadership. Alex, on the other hand, took our company global. He launched a tech division in partnership with a European firm and is currently overseeing a major smart city project abroad. He's turned our once local development company into a cross-continental force, and he did it without ever expecting a handout. Even the children Grace tried to use as leverage have become shining examples of resilience. Ella now works full-time with our foundation and recently started her own initiative for supporting young adults from high-conflict homes. Her younger siblings, all in college or trade school, have stayed close with Daniel and continue to flourish. And Grace? After multiple violations of her probation, including an attempt to network under a fake name at a real estate event, the court imposed further restrictions. She now lives out of state and has minimal supervised contact with Caleb. Despite her efforts to reframe her story as a misunderstood mother fighting for her children, the documented evidence, including her journal and attempts at fraud, speaks for itself. We've stayed cordial, but cautious. She has the opportunity to rebuild her life, but not at the expense of ours. In the years since everything unfolded, our family business has gone from a successful operation to a nationally recognized case study. Several business schools now use our story as a teaching tool, not just about fraud prevention, but about leadership, boundaries, and rebuilding trust after betrayal. We host an annual summit for family-run companies, where we discuss real-world challenges, from navigating step-parent dynamics to preventing manipulation in succession planning. What we learned the hard way, we now offer as guidance to others. Perhaps the most profound transformation has been personal. I've stepped back from day-to-day leadership and now serve as chairman of the board and senior advisor. I spend my time mentoring young entrepreneurs, consulting for other family businesses, and, most importantly, being a grandfather. Caleb calls me Papa J. His curiosity is endless, and watching him grow up in a world of clarity, values, and emotional safety is the greatest reward of all. If there's one lesson I could pass on to others facing similar storms, it's this. Love your family fiercely, but protect your legacy wisely. Manipulation thrives in silence. Boundaries are not a betrayal, they're a necessity. And sometimes, the act of saying no can be the most loving thing you ever do. What started as an attempt to steal a piece of our future ended up making that future stronger than we ever imagined. Update 1 to 6 months later. First, thank you to everyone who messaged me with support, questions, and even skepticism. I never expected the story to get this much attention, but I've learned that a lot of people are dealing with similar family business drama. So here's what's happened in the 6 months since everything came crashing down. Daniel, my brother, has truly stepped into his role as both a leader and a father. After Grace's sentencing and the court's decision to grant him temporary full custody of baby Caleb, he took time off from the company to settle into life as a single dad. We brought in a transitional leadership consultant for 6 months so Daniel could focus on Caleb without business pressure. Best decision we ever made. Caleb's a happy, healthy baby, and Daniel is thriving, no longer pulled in a dozen directions by Grace's emotional manipulation. The 4 older kids, Grace's from her previous marriage, are currently living with their maternal grandparents. The grandparents have been surprisingly supportive of maintaining a connection with Daniel and even with me. We've arranged a voluntary visitation schedule, and the 2 oldest children have chosen to keep in regular contact with Daniel. One even asked to visit the office and see where Uncle Daniel works, which was a bittersweet moment. As for Grace, she served her 90 days, is on supervised probation, and is restricted from engaging in anything related to family business or inheritance law. She did try to post online about being wronged and cut out unfairly, but once the court documents and her fake paperwork attempts were brought up in responses, she quietly backed off. On the legal side, we've taken steps to fortify the company and our estate. All major documents are now managed by a third-party legal firm specializing in succession planning and blended families. The family business charter we implemented is already paying off, everyone knows their role, rights, and responsibilities. There are no more gray areas for opportunists to exploit. My daughter, Mia, recently took the lead on creating a mentorship track within the company for the next generation, not just our kids, but employees' kids too. It's merit-based, and every intern has to work their way up just like anyone else. Something I didn't expect, the amount of outreach I've received from other business owners in similar positions. People facing pressure from extended family, step-parents, or spouses who believe proximity equals entitlement. It's made me realize how often people confuse access with ownership. Daniel and I are closer than we've ever been. He admitted to me privately that he'd suspected something was off with Grace long before it exploded, but he was afraid of rocking the boat. He's carrying some guilt, but I've reminded him over and over, he did the right thing when it mattered most. More updates to come. There's still a long road ahead, including how we're handling Grace's supervised visitation and whether the older kids want more involvement with our family, but for now, things are peaceful. And after what we went through, peace feels like a miracle. Update 2 to 1 year later. It's been about a year since my last update, and a lot has happened, some of it healing, some of it surprising, and some of it downright strange. First, the business is thriving. Daniel officially returned to full-time leadership about 6 months ago and was voted co-CEO alongside Mia by our family council. They've turned out to be an incredible team. Daniel focuses on operations and long-term expansion, while Mia handles governance, ethics, and HR. Meanwhile, Alex, my son, has grown our tech division into its own powerhouse. We recently secured a deal with a university to develop sustainable student housing, and we're exploring opportunities abroad. Caleb, now a toddler, is the heart of the family. It's incredible to see how much love surrounds that boy, from Daniel, from Nicole, his fiancée now, more on that in a bit, and even from his half-siblings, who've slowly been rebuilding relationships in healthier, more stable ways. The 2 oldest children from Grace's previous marriage, Ella and Noah, continue to have regular contact with Daniel and occasionally visit me as well. Ella is now in college, studying nonprofit administration, and she recently did a summer internship with our foundation. Her drive is impressive. She told me privately that she wants to help kids who grow up in chaos find calm. She's turning her trauma into something powerful. Now for the more complicated parts. Grace has continued to try and re-enter our lives, in subtle and not-so-subtle ways. She recently published a self-published memoir, which she titled something vague and manipulative like Blended but Broken. While she technically didn't use our full names, the descriptions were obvious to anyone who knows us. The book painted her as a mother pushed aside by a greedy, old-fashioned family, and vaguely hinted at Daniel being coerced into taking full custody. Naturally, it didn't gain much traction, but it did cause enough drama to warrant another conversation with our legal team. Grace is still under probation and not allowed to engage in profit-seeking ventures based on the business she tried to defraud. Her self-promotion may not have crossed any clear legal lines yet, but it was enough to get her flagged by her probation officer. Her visitation with Caleb has now been paused until the next hearing, as it may violate the emotional safety clause in the court's custody agreement. Daniel has been firm, Caleb's stability comes first. There's no room for manufactured chaos. Now, onto something more uplifting. Daniel and Nicole got engaged. She's a small business owner herself, runs a home design and eco-consulting firm, and has been nothing but supportive, honest, and grounded. She's brought a calming influence to Daniel's life and treats Caleb like her own, while respecting boundaries with his siblings and their history. They're planning a small ceremony next spring. Our foundation, the Helix Initiative, has officially partnered with 2 national organizations to provide conflict mediation and governance planning for blended families involved in business. We've now assisted over 700 families and just launched a virtual legal clinic to help small businesses structure succession plans that account for modern family complexity. Also, something I never expected. Our case has now been cited in 3 appellate court decisions as a precedent for succession challenges involving stepchildren and non-married partners. Apparently, legal scholars are following it as a sort of benchmark for what can go wrong when family and business mix without boundaries. So yes, we've become that family. The case study. The seminar topic. But if it prevents even one other family from going through what we did, it's worth it. To everyone who told me a year ago to stay strong, hold boundaries, and keep documenting everything, thank you. You helped more than you know. Update 3 to 5 years later. 5 years. It's wild to think how far we've come since Grace stormed into my office and demanded I rewrite my legacy to suit her ambitions. If you had told me then that what felt like the worst betrayal of my life would lead to this much growth, healing, and transformation, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are. The business, thriving. We now operate in 5 states and have partnered with international developers to bring sustainable, community-focused housing to underserved areas. Daniel remains co-CEO with Mia. Their leadership has taken us further than I ever could have imagined, and they've earned every ounce of it. Daniel has fully stepped out of my shadow, and I couldn't be prouder. He's not just the executive I once hoped he'd become, he's better. He's thoughtful, strategic, and compassionate in ways that bring people together, even in hard times. Mia, on the other hand, is now a national voice in corporate governance, particularly in family-owned enterprises. She co-authored a book last year titled Blood, Boundaries, and Business, which is being taught in several MBA programs. Her chapter on emotional asset protection is brilliant. She wrote it based on our experience with Grace and the fallout that followed. Caleb, thriving. He's now 7, in school, and already helping Nicole, now Daniel's wife, plant rooftop gardens on their sustainable townhouse project. He's bright, curious, and completely unaware that he was once a pawn in a very adult game of manipulation. And that's exactly how it should be. He's just a kid, a happy, grounded, deeply loved kid. Grace's children, the outcome there surprised me. Ella graduated with honors, now works in business ethics, and actually helps companies structure employee ownership programs. She still works with our foundation part-time, mentoring young adults from fractured families who want to break generational patterns. Noah is in law school. He wants to specialize in nonprofit governance and conflict mediation, inspired by the chaos, as he puts it. The younger two are both in college and pursuing their own paths, and we continue to support them through their education trusts. All 4 maintain contact with Daniel, and even with me. They've shown remarkable resilience. And Grace, the real kind. Not the woman who nearly tore us apart. Grace herself, her story is complicated, but clear. After her final probation violation, trying to solicit high-net-worth divorcees through a networking group she wasn't allowed to join, she was given a long-term restriction on her business activity and limited visitation rights with any of her children. Caleb does not see her, a decision made with the help of therapists, courts, and Daniel. She lives out of state now, keeps a low profile, and has no influence over any part of our lives. From what I hear, she's tried to rebuild her life. I wish her no harm, but I also wish her nowhere near the people she once tried to control. The foundation, now fully funded and operating in 13 states, with pilot programs internationally. The Helix Initiative has supported over 2,000 families in crisis, blended families, stepfamilies, multi-generational family businesses on the edge of collapse. We provide everything from legal planning to trauma-informed therapy for kids. It's my proudest legacy. We recently launched a youth leadership program, and guess who's already signed up to help run the first cohort? Caleb. He wants to teach kids how to build greenhouses. 10 years ago, Grace tried to use an unborn child to force her way into my business. Today, that child is leading sustainability workshops for kids his age, not because he inherited anything, but because he was raised in an environment where love, values, and earned legacy mattered more than bloodlines or control. As for me, I've retired. Fully. I spend half my time at a lake cabin with my partner and the other half traveling to speak at family business summits. The irony is that after all the chaos, I've become something of a cautionary tale, but also, in a strange way, a symbol of what's possible when you hold your ground. So, to anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, facing manipulation, guilt-tripping, threats, or betrayal from someone who wants a shortcut into your legacy, I'll say this one last time. Boundaries protect love. Clarity protects the future. And silence only protects the manipulator. Hold your line. Tell the truth. And trust that the right people will rise when the wrong ones fall away. Thanks for following this journey. We're better for having lived it, and stronger for having survived it. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.